Thank you, Yi. Next up, please help me welcome Greg Crowe, President and CEO of Silver One Resources. Silver One is a silver-focused exploration and development company with projects in Nevada and Mexico, targeting near-term production and resource expansion. Please put your hands up for Greg.
Okay, thank you, Mary, and thank you everyone for being here this morning. Is this on? It is, okay. That's much better. Thank you very much. And as Mary said, we are a US-focused company. She mentioned we did have projects in Mexico, but we no longer do. Our projects are in Nevada and Arizona. And this is a flagship project. It's called the past-producing Candelaria Silver Mine in the state of Nevada. I'll be spending a bit of time on this asset. That's our forward-looking statement, ubiquitous to all these talks. But we also have projects in Arizona. Phoenix Silver Project is a very high-grade silver opportunity, but interestingly enough, it has excellent porphyry copper potential as well. So we are looking at working on those first two projects. We do have a third project, but it's at the early stage, so I won't spend much time on that one right now. I'll come back to this a little bit later as we get into the summary portion, but I want to spend a little bit of time talking about why silver. Silver, unlike gold, about 65% has industrial uses. We have the traditional ones like jewelry, silverware, etc., but the big growing ones are in the electronics business, the photovoltaic business. AI is becoming much more prominent as we use more and more computers, supercomputers, to facilitate the AI evolution, using a lot more silver. A lot of people don't think about this, but the military consumes vast amounts of silver, and as we have more conflicts around the world, we're using more and more silver on a daily basis. The biggest users right now, of course, are in the electric car, electric vehicle, and photovoltaic. We're currently producing just over 800 million ounces of silver a year, but consuming over 1 billion ounces. So where do we get that makeup for that deficit, which has been going on for about 4 years? Well, we get it from scrap, we get it from recycling, probably won't last much longer. Not very many good silver projects that are near-term production in the world today. Some of the factors that are going to affect the price of silver, well, instability around the world. We're seeing competition increasing around the world. We're seeing tariffs. It's upsetting the US dollar, shall we say, viability as a world reserve currency. US dollar index is coming down. It's dropped below 100. Dow Jones is still strong, but some people are calling for a correction. We're seeing record debt, just in the US, but around the world as well. Potential inflation coming in again due to the tariff situation. And this is all creating an environment where people are fleeing into safe havens of gold, silver, and some into Bitcoin as well. Interesting enough, in a commodity supercycle, silver does outperform gold on a percentage basis. We're starting to see that now as the gold-silver ratio is starting to come down again below 100. So let's watch silver, just over $34 today, very strong. So let's spend a little bit of time at Candelaria on the western side of Nevada, just off the main highway that joins Reno to Las Vegas. Very well situated, excellent infrastructure. It was an early high-grade producer, discovered in 1864. Up until 1959, it produced on an average rate of 1,250 grams per ton per day. Very high grade. It went into open pit mining in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. That open pit mining brought the average grade down to about 100 grams per ton, which wasn't bad. Kinross was the last big producer, produced up till 97. With the collapse of silver prices down to about $2.50, they decided to close the mine and start reclamation. But they never completed reclamation, which is to our benefit today. Moving on, They sold it off to Silver Standard. Silver Standard looked at it. Silver prices were still well under $5. They moved on to other projects. We did a deal with Silver Standard in 2017. We finalized that deal by putting down a $2.5 million reclamation bond on one of the big heap leach pads that you saw in the original photograph. And we now have 100% with no royalties back to Silver Standard, now SSR Mining. So we've been working diligently. When we first got hold of the project, we thought we would try and bring the heap leach pads into production as a starter. But there were some complications, so we did a lot of drilling, and we've recently, within the last 3 weeks, put out a new updated in-ground resource. Well, that in-ground resource, if we add up all of those various areas, this is the in-ground resource. I'll let you look at the numbers there, and I'll summarize them for you at the end. But we also have a lot of silver on the old heap leach pads. We've got just over 30 million ounces of silver on the large leach pad and another 15 million ounces on the small leach pad. All told, we have just under 110 million ounces measured and indicated on the property to date, lots of room to expand that, and about 30 million ounces inferred. So where are we going to go from here? Well, as I said, the infrastructure is excellent. The main road that joins Reno to Vegas is in the upper right portion of this slide. 2 miles of paved road past the 2 leach pads to the old open pits. We've got down dip to the northeast, the resource that I talked about. We've got power and we've got water. A lot of necessary components to bringing a project back into production. Also, most importantly, is because Kinross never completed reclamation, we have essentially permits that are still active. They need to be updated, but we have been told by the BLM and the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection that they will update those permits within a matter of months after we get them a plan of operation. So what are we trying to do? That's some of the drilling we did. We did some metallurgical testing. Original recoveries out of the pit were about 51%, seems to be typical for these silver oxide type deposits in the United States. We're getting 66% using cyanide leaching based on the metallurgical testing we've done on the fresh material. Now, as I said, we wanted to start with the heaps, but the metallurgical work we did on the heaps, because they had been partially leached, was disappointing. It was only 21 to 29%. But we've run into a new group, and that new group is called Extract. Extract is in partnership with Bechtel, one of the biggest engineering groups in the world. They have developed proprietary solutions, which they claim could increase the recoveries on our heap leach pads. We said, prove it to us. So they did some experiments, some testing on leach pad number 1 and leach pad number 2, and they were coming up with some very interesting results. As opposed to getting 21 and 29%, they were getting 60 and 70% recoveries using their solutions. Why? Because unlike cyanide that just attacks the outer surface of a lot of the crushed material and can't deal with a lot of very difficult silver oxide minerals like jarosite, etc., these solutions seem to work on an ionic basis, penetrate into that rock, and also they attack a lot of these more difficult silver oxide minerals. We're moving forward. We want to do an economic evaluation later this year. We'll probably use cyanide as a base case, but we're going to look at this extract. We're doing some additional testing with them, and eventually what we would like to do is actually do some pilot tests on the leach pads. So that's coming up in hopefully later this year is what we're working on. There's also a lot of upside potential. Major structure controls the mineralization at Candelaria. And what's interesting is to the west of Candelaria, we're seeing a different style of mineralization. It not only has silver oxide, it's got copper sulfide and very altered looking intrusive material. We want to do some more testing to see the potential for a potential porphyry. There is a large porphyry setting to the northwest of us along the Walker Trent in the Yarrington Belt. Nevada Copper did produce from that area more recently. So we think there's a lot of potential to do that. Moving forward, I want to jump down to our project in Arizona. It's just east of Phoenix, a place called Globe, one of the biggest porphyry copper producing areas in the southwest US. This was an early project at the northeast end of a 100-plus kilometer long porphyry copper belt. Higher up in elevation on the hillside, prospectors came to us and they said, we've got this project with very little outcrop. But they had gone up the hillside with their metal detectors and they uncovered these very large silver vein fragments just below the surface. The one in the middle weighed in 417 pounds, estimated to contain about 70% pure silver. Very angular, unabraded, so we thought we'd be able to find the source of these. We're at the northeast end of this big prolific copper belt. Immediately off our southwest margin is Freeport-McMoRan, the Miami smelter complex that was talked about a couple of discussions ago. We can carry on and we see Capstone at Pinto Valley. KGHM is working on the Carlotta. We're looking at essentially the Resolution deposit, which is struggling to get their permitting, but is being recently approved by Trump. And closer to our property, a brand new discovery by BHP called Ocelot. Underneath the old Dominion mine, where there are huge polymetallic veins with gold and silver, they have discovered multiple intercepts, 250 meters plus, of 0.6 to 0.7% porphyry copper. All that trends right under our property. These are just some of the samples that we discovered. We've collected over 250 of these from around the property. We drilled to see if we could find the source of these very high-grade boulders or fragments. We were successful in outlining what we think is the host structure. We did get values up to 3,000 ppm or grams per ton silver, but we didn't find the big special one. But what's interesting is we flew the property, we did an electromagnetic survey, ZTEM survey, 2 big potential porphyry copper targets on the southern portion of the property that we want to do some IP work over. And if we are successful in narrowing in some of those targets, we'll contemplate doing some drilling. We're already getting some very interested inquiries from some of our neighbors with regard to would we like to partner out on the copper potential while we pursue the silver potential on Phoenix Silver. So that's what we're doing later this year. We're currently getting some contracts on the IP survey, and we're currently carrying on doing more work with respect to our metallurgical work at Candelaria. These are just some photos. You can see the workings of Freeport-McMoRan just in behind us. We're standing on our property, getting a lot of copper samples. Multiple samples return more than 1% copper that we've collected on the project. Excellent geology, very similar to what we see down at the Resolution deposit further to the south. So let's just move forward quickly. We're running out of time. We do have a third project, very early stage, long, extensive veins with copper, silver, and gold. It was drilled in the 1980s for porphyry moly. We think there's a big porphyry deposit there. Host rocks are limestone. We think there's some CRD-looking material and big vein deposits with precious metals. Not doing a lot of work there because we're concentrating on Candelaria and Phoenix Silver. So, as I said, we're going to move forward. Candelaria, continue our metallurgical testing. Hopefully we're going to get out a updated economic study towards the end of the year. Phoenix Silver, we're going to do that IP, see if we can find some drill targets that would identify some porphyry targets to drill. And then we'll see where we go beyond that. There are several silver targets that we have to evaluate as well. And Cherokee, as I said, is an interesting project, but it's early stage exploration, and we're not focusing on it right now. So there's our summing up. Largest shareholder, of course, no surprise. We've got Mr. Eric Sprott in there. But the Jupiter Fund out of London jumped into our stock in our last financing. They took up almost 60% of the placement themselves. They're now our second largest shareholder. And we have about 20 other funds and family funds into the company right now. And we we'll probably go back to the market in the not too distant future because we have aggressive exploration programs that we want to conduct. That's our board of directors. I'm the president and CEO. Our chairman is Luke Norman. Some of you might know Luke. He has a company called US Gold. He's presenting here. The other prominent director would be Claudia Torrenquist. She has a copper company called Kodiak Copper. You might know that one. And we are in booth 96 if you want to drop by and say hello or ask some questions. But we're out of time. Thank you very much.